These are just a few of the words used to describe the 2019 Consumer Achievement Award winner, Pamela McIntosh.
I was on disability. I had not worked in a good 10 years. I was in a bad car accident while I was on the job, and I was coming back home and someone hit me from behind, and I had extensive damage, and so that was what led me up. But then when I was 65, every time I passed Voc Rehab, a voice would say, "Stop in there." I wanted to go back to work. I had always worked up to that point, and so something just said to me, stop back in there, and I would not. And then one day, my husband and I was driving by, and I said, "Stop. I want to go in and see if they could help me."
Ms. McIntosh came to us back in 2017. She had been in a car accident back in 2000 and had been out of work for quite a while. She wasn't sure herself if she could work, so came to us. The vocational assessment gave her an opportunity to see what careers are out there, looking at her past experience, what qualifications would be needed for jobs that she was interested in, and to give her a chance to realize what training would be needed. At that point, she realized that since she had been out of work since 2000, that she would need to work on those computer skills.
When Ms. Pam came in, she was very nervous about kind of what might lie ahead. She was a little bit nervous because she'd been out of the job market for a little while. She was worried about a skills gap. We had come up with a class for people who really knew nothing about computers. We called it Computers 101. And the first lesson was actually how to use a mouse.
There was a lot of information coming in all at one time from different directions, and so trying to learn a little bit of Word. I'd never learned anything about computers, so trying to get in there and figure out the Word, the Excel, QuickBooks, how to shut the computer on and off. Because of Voc Rehab, they made it in simple steps and helped me along, and it became easier and easier. I never dreamed that it was possible for someone at 65 years old and on disability and never had a computer that I would ever be able to get back into the workforce. As we went along, they just trained me in all different areas, and I felt like I was balanced. And then we had job interviews that made me feel very comfortable. They prepared me for that. So I kept moving up and moving forward because Voc Rehab worked as a team, and each department was really, really helpful and trained me just right, and it kept me excited, it kept me interested, and so I kept going. And that's where Mcdonald stepped in, and she was the liaison between the Voc Rehab, myself, and Habitat for Humanity.
She had discovered, working with our job preparedness instructor, a position that she felt really comfortable about. She really wanted this position at Berkeley Habitat Humanity. They were looking for a financial assistant. She didn't quite meet the minimum qualifications as far as having that experience with Excel, with QuickBooks, the electronic side, the technology side. So getting involved in introducing our services of vocational rehabilitation to the business, we were able to figure out exactly what do we need to do to help her get the skills to come on board.
What they were requiring had a lot of the background things that I had once done, but on paper and not computer. So we felt like maybe there was an opportunity there that we could take advantage of and get on board with and see how far it would take us.
The business said straight up, we can't hire her without QuickBooks training. So by having that conversation with the business, coordinating with her counselors and staff, figuring out, can we think outside the box? Can we help this person get this specialized skill and certification to then get hired on to develop that on-the-job training? The QuickBooks was the basics. On top of that, you had to learn, and she had to figure out how that would apply and what information she would need to gather from her team at Berkeley Habitat to put into QuickBooks and how they ran their systems. Their invoices, their procurements, everything was going to be different depending on how the QuickBooks was being used. So that's what we were able to help her with, and that's how the on-the-job training helped her get a little extra hands-on experience with the business to make sure she was successful. The fact that she was willing to stay there later than she was expected to really put in the time to work at home, to do some things on her own, to gain more experience and make herself more comfortable, really showed the business that she was motivated and she wasn't going anywhere. And I can tell you from the beginning, you know, when I sat down with George, the executive director, it was after she had already applied, and he said, you know, I saw her experience, I loved her experience, but the lack of the technology and the computer skills put her in the gotta pass stack. By going on site and advocating for her and having him pull her application and revisit what can we do to help her get the skills you needed is really what pulled her into that final consideration and what got her the job.
Michelle, who works here locally, stopped by one day and just said, hey, how are you guys? Wanted to introduce herself, introduce South Carolina Voc Rehab, and said, you know, if you ever have a need for someone, we have a way of providing folks for you to try. And we said, you know what, we do. We have an opening for a finance administrator, and we'd love to see how that works out. They give you a little bit of time to try the person and say, hey, you know, this is going to be a good fit, or we can potentially work further down the road, or this isn't what we were looking for. And with Pam, it was perfect because Pam had been out of the workplace for many years. And this was kind of her first trial at reentry back into the workplace. So we didn't know what that was going to look like. Someone who hadn't been around technology and who hadn't been a part of a workplace for many years. So we had her for, I want to say close to 6 weeks as a trial. And she did phenomenal. She had such a great heart and desire to learn. Some things were challenging, but she worked through all of them, so we were grateful for that.
I had to do my part. Voc Rehab had a part to do in it. Habitat for Humanity stepped out and took a chance on me. It gave me the drive that I needed to do the research, to do the studying, to reach out and ask, what can I do next? What can I learn next? It was just teamwork from day one when I stepped into Voc Rehab all the way through to even today.
So we started from how do you send an email? How do you check an email? How do you create a spreadsheet? How do you log into systems online? All those things were new to her. And she took her little notebook and she wrote down every little step. And if she couldn't recall it, she'd go back to that notebook and pull it up. And so she did very well, and she's come from that to now being able to find those things, access those things. She's actually learning QuickBooks online, which is a momentous step from where she was.
I'm so proud of her. She came so far. You know, I remember the day that we actually talked about the position at Habitat. I said, Ms. Pam, you know, this job would be fantastic for you. You know, it would call upon your community experience, your volunteer experience. It calls upon, you know, your accounting background, all of these things. This would be a perfect job for you. And she was a little bit nervous about that. She was excited nervous, I guess you'd say, and was worried about those skills gaps. But just the positive attitude that she had when she approached these things, you know, I said the tenacity that she had, she wasn't going to give up. She was going to get this thing done.
When she came in, and just her determination and her passion and her desire to get back to work. And she is one of the many examples of why I love coming to work every day. Just being able to help folks to reach their goals, to have her set that goal, to see her go the extra mile, participate in the training, do all that it took to get her ready for employment and to see her be successful. That's why I love coming to work every day.
I would just like to say good job. Way to stick with it, way to have patience, determination. And thank you for forgiving me for not having patience all the time.
Habitat for Humanity has been such a blessing. And George was willing to go out on a limb to give me a chance. And not just once, but I know there was 3 or 4 opportunities he could have, you know, hired someone else. But he stuck with me and had the patience, and I've learned a lot. And the team here, if it wasn't for them helping me in those times of need that I needed, I don't know what I would have done, because I was just lost when it came to the world of technology. I would like to tell the team at VR that there are no words that I can even describe how wonderful they were, how patient and wonderful, how they took the time to make sure I was successful at everything I did. I thank God that there is a Voc Rehab, or I would not be where I'm at right now.